All right, everybody, welcome to the hands-on video with Pro-L2. This one we're going to use Pro-L2 to get our final stage of limiting done for this pre-master that's already sounding really great, but we need to get it ready for distribution, and that's Pro-L2's job. It's what it does so well, so that's how we're going to use it today. Let's go ahead and jump into this video, hands-on with Pro-L2 by FabFilter. So the first thing we need to do is jump into the metering system and decide where our target should be. Now, new to Pro-L2 is the loudness meter, and that's what we're going to use, though the K scale is there if you, for some reason, wanted to use it. The loudness scale uses LUFS, which is the more modern target system or metering system that is used throughout the music industry. The next decision would be which target we want to go for. This video is going to be streamed, so I'm going to go -14 LUFS so I don't have any issues with distortion when this video is uploaded to YouTube. So YouTube, Spotify, Tidal all use the target of -14 LUFS, so that's what we're going to go with here. But if we were going to go for CD, bounce, we could go -9. There are also some other broadcast standards down here, but again, this video will be streamed. I'm going to go -14. We can also choose whether or not the meter will be absolute or relative. And all that does is changes the number over here. The meter is going to stay the same. The audio is going to be registered the same. And with relative, 0 is the goal. Absolute, 0 dB is at the top, and -14 is the goal. So really it's just a cosmetic change, and that's the same with right here. We can zoom in on the top or on the upper part of the meter if we wanted to. Those are all really just cosmetic changes, and it's really up to you what you want to see. So the other thing I want to change is I want to make sure I'm on short term down here. Momentary is going to show me each and every transient, and I kind of am not looking for that right now. I'm looking for more of an average of the LUFS over time. Short terms we're going to go with. So let's go ahead and play the track and adjust the gain slider until we're getting close to -14.
International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then me sit down steady. Body me on the place I with the one Jamal skinny.
And this brings me to the other thing. This meter down here, which is generally what I pay attention to first before I start looking at the other 3 meters over here, is also going to be hitting -14 is where I want to be. But if I change this to relative, this will be, I'm trying to hit 0 now.
International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then me sit down steady. Body me on the place I with the one Jamal skinny.
So we're very close. We're kind of peeking over it a little bit, but that's okay. Another thing is we could do the relative gain matching, which is very important for when you're bypassing the unit to hear exactly what the limiting is doing to the sound. You can now come in inside of Pro-L2 and just hit the 1-to-1 or the unity gain, which will give you relative gain matching right out of the box with one click. Another thing you can do, it's the same as it was in Pro-L1. If I pull this down and then hold down Alt while I'm moving up, the output will move in relation to how much gain I'm adding over here. So I was around 5.8, so you can see that the gain has reduced to 5.8.
International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then me sit down steady.
And that's going to be the same thing as if my output was at 0 and I just used the unity gain button.
International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm.
So using the unity gain button is actually better because I don't need to come back in and remember to adjust the output level. So now that we're pretty much close to our goal, the next thing we can do is come in and decide what style sounds best and what, if any, of the advanced features need to be tweaked. And a good thing I like to do for this part is come into the limiting audition feature by turning it on and then listening to hear what's kind of being added by the particular style while I'm auditioning each style. So here we're not getting any artifacts being added to the signal, which is pretty good. Let's check out Punchy. Still almost nothing. That's great. I'm just going to turn it up so you can hear sometimes what you would be hearing. Like if you're going for a CD master, this was what you would hear. And then you'd want to adjust these parameters to make it sound better. So watch what happens is just moving the look ahead a little bit. So it actually sounds a little bit more musical at this point. And if we can adjust the attack. And now we're going to be limiting more of the signal, or we can go, you know. So here would be more punchy. Let's check out transparent. Aggressive. You can hear the differences in these with the audition limiting feature. I'm just gonna go right back to punchy. I really liked it. And go ahead and go back to the original. Okay, and the next thing I would do in this particular thing, and I had to move my gain back because I gave you the example with the gain really cranked up there, and I apologize for that, but I wanted to show you everything, right? The next thing I would do is turn off true peak limiting. True peak limiting is going to catch any ISPs that happen from the digital to analog conversion, and that's a whole subject in and of itself, but essentially sometimes because of the rigidness of samples inside of the digital world, when it's converted to an analog signal, the curve of the wave goes above 0. And that's what true peak limiting is for, which is right here. We can turn it on and turn it off. This shows us how much clipping is going to happen when the digital signal is converted to analog. And what I like to do is turn the meter on while turning the limiting off and see how much we're getting from the particular settings we have. International, what they call we international. When me ride hard with them in the move, so you can see here we're actually really good. We're not even getting any clipping. So let's try to push the signal to a CD master, just so I can show you what I would do in this particular case. So let's push it. It's going to get real loud. Okay, so there we go. I was at plus 0.5 decibel of clipping or peaking, which will then get clipped when the digital to analog conversion happens. Let's just show you one more time. So that's a lot. That's way too much. What I like to do is get it to plus 0.1 or 0.2 and then use the true peak limiter to catch those peaks. But 0.5 is actually too much in my opinion to rely on the true peak limiter, and there are a couple of ways we can deal with that. One is we can come into the output and set it to a conservative value like negative 0.3, and then that will give us negative that will give us plus 0.2 up here, or we can turn on oversampling. And what I like to do is start with 2 times, then go to 4 times and 8 times until I get it close enough without, crushing my computer CPU for no other reason. So let's just go ahead and turn on 2 times and see what happens to the true peak over here. So just going 2 times, we're already getting a reduction of peak by 0.4 decibels. So if I turn it on 4, let's see what happens. Okay, so it looks like that's as close as we're gonna get, and like I said, that's perfectly fine for me, and that's when I turn on true peak limiting. And now look, we're at 0, obviously, because the limiter is catching those peaks, but we're only catching a peak of 0.1 decibel, which is, in my opinion, the best way to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock it back down to the streaming target, just so I can show you the final stages here. Okay, so that's running a little bit hot, but I'm okay with it. The next thing we could do is just come into the output, and we need to make the decision if this wave is just going to be uploaded as a wave. We can go -0.3 would be a good value to have it at, and that's just in case the true peak limiter doesn't catch every single peak. We're giving it a little bit of space for those peaks to happen without causing clipping, because clipping is just totally terrible. We can do it that way, or if this particular master is going to be exported for a later conversion to MP3, then we need to decide how much headroom to leave or where the ceiling should be. And for most cases, it's a good idea to leave at least 1 decibel in my opinion. So I would go -1 right here. And that way, if this file is going to get encoded into an MP3 or an AAC, there's going to be less distortion, if any distortion. And the final thing we need to do is turn on the limiter and decide what bit rate we're going for. Whenever something's inside of Ableton Live, for example, it's a 32-bit file. Even if you load it up in MP3, it gets converted to WAV 32-bit. So we're going to be going to 16-bit on the export, and we just need to choose what type of noise shaping. Optimize is perfect. Very few times are you actually going to notice a difference there. So just go ahead with optimize. You can change them if you want. If you really hear something, if there's like a particular silent part of your track and you're on a super good speakers, you can hear that noise floor. Go ahead and change it if you want to. And then you just got to go ahead and export the track. Now, if you're exporting from Ableton Live, you're going to want to make sure your dithering is off. So I'm going to go to, it would be 4116, and I want to make sure my dithering is off. That way we're not adding dithering twice, because 2 additions of the noise, which is what dithering is, would actually start to become maybe audible, but for sure adding extra noise to your sound is just like a no-no. Why would you want to do it? So that's how you would export it, and then I would just go ahead and run the export here inside Ableton Live, and I would have my master ready for streaming wherever I want it to go and be ready for possible MP3 conversion later on down the road. So that's how you use Pro-L2 in a real-world situation. I hope you learned something. Pro-L2 is available right now on Plugin Boutique. Links in the description of this video. Go download your trial version today and start getting your limiting done right. I'm Joshua Casper. We'll see you next time.